Hello and welcome to the Gerety Talks. My name is Lucia Ongai and I am the co-founder of Gerety Awards, a global creative prize that is redefining the standard to which advertising has been traditionally held. Named for Francis Gerety, the copywriter who in 1948 coined the slogan, "A diamond is forever," Gerety Awards marks the first time an international jury has been brought together to select the best in advertising, all advertising, not just advertising made for women, through the female lens. Just like the awards, Gerety Talks will put some of the creative industry's true change makers in the spotlight with the aim to drive progress within the industry in a global scale. Today we have three amazing guests who are here to talk about European creativity and about their work and their lives. So welcome. We have Sandra Bold, who's Global CD at Publicis Italy. After a long architecture career that lasts almost 7 months and a half, Sandra decided doing ads is more fun than doing houses. She started her ad career in Bucharest, where she started winning awards at festivals. Her work made a significant contribution to McCann World Group being named Network of the Year in Golden Drum for several consecutive years. She has also been a juror in many award shows, and she moved from Bucharest to London and from London to Publicis Milan, where she's currently working as Global Creative Director. Then Lauren Haberfield, Associate Creative Director from BETC in France. She was recently recognized as one of the 3% and the One Club's next creative leaders. Lauren is an Australian Associate Creative Director living in Paris who has spent the last decade creating award-winning campaigns. A published thought leader, public speaker, international award juror, and a feminist before it was cool. Lauren is one of BIT's 100 Superwomen, a See It Be It alumni, and has been identified globally as an industry leader of tomorrow. She believes advertising can change the world and can be found convincing her teams and clients to create social change and stand for something better. And Katrina Encanto, Global CD from Mullen, Lowe, London. Katrina has more than a decade of global experience, having worked in the UK, Thailand, Italy, and the Philippines. She leads creative work globally for Persil. Her work has won Gold Lions, Gold Effie's, D&AD pencils, and other shiny objects at major international festivals. In 2017, she was named one of 30 creative trailblazers by Campaign and Creative Equals. She has judged several times at D&AD, serving as jury president for White Pencil in its New Blood Festival in 2020. And she has also awarded some of the world's best work at Cannes, Creative Circle, and Gerety. Welcome to the three of you. Thank you very much for joining us in this Gerety talk of today. So we're going to talk a little bit about European creativity. Europe brings together many different countries, cultures, nations, languages, and economic realities, among other things. Do you think, though, there is something particular about European advertising, something specific about the region and the creative work that is done, or trends that the region follows compared to other regions? Who would like to start?
I can start.
Okay.
First of all, this is one of the most difficult questions ever, but it's a very good one also. And I think it's very interesting when you say creativity in Europe, because if you're not from Europe and people say creativity in Europe, they just think about this big lump of land and sure, it's European creativity. But actually you have a lot of different countries with very strong cultural backgrounds in a very cramped up space. So then there's a lot of identities in it. And you have, I don't know, smaller countries or not as developed countries that thrive through creativity in their own way by making the most out of nothing. But then mostly in the East, Romania is one example. And then you have the Western budgets and media exposure and clients and briefs. But what's magic for me in it is when you take all these people from all these backgrounds and you put them together in an agency, like we have in Publicis Milan, or how it's in London in many agencies, or in France. They start galvanizing some new exciting stuff with different insights and really cool references, and put together really, really strong pieces of creative, and they just make it all exciting and cool in such a small piece of land. So this is how I feel about it.
Great. Well, for me, my experience of European creativity is a tad bit different, because I didn't start my career in Europe, but I've always admired the work coming out of Europe, even before I came to London 6 years ago. So I remember being a young creative in the Philippines, and I would see work like Honda Gur and Cadbury Gorilla coming out of the UK, and all the Heineken stunts coming out of Italy. And I would always feel as if they were at a completely different level in terms of thinking and craft. And then as I moved to Italy and Thailand, I'd be amazed by work like Volvo Epic Split from Sweden and Nazis Against Nazis from Germany. And they would really inspire me to aim for the same level of ambition in my work. And what I've noticed is, since I started working in the region, my admiration for European creativity just continues to grow. What I can say is that with Lowe Madrid as part of our network, I saw how European creativity can not only inspire the rest of the world, but be appropriate for it too. Because this office in Madrid would make work for Burger King and Magnum, and that would originate in Europe, but it would be rolled out to the rest of the markets. And so this makes the point that, bold and provocative work is actually universal. It's not just for Europe. So I think some of the stereotypes about certain markets being conservative start to erode because of this. And then as I look at this year's batch of creative work, I would say that my ambition only gets greater, because you just see brands taking action on the things they're no longer willing to accept. So for instance, you have Carrefour's Black Supermarket, which has this ambition to defy their national law to help farmers and biodiversity. And then there's also this piece of work from Sweden, the Apoteka's Hard Pill to Swallow, which demonstrated accountability for their own category's contribution to pollution. So I think there's a certain accountability when it comes to brands wanting to take care of their communities and just be more mindful of their effect in the world.
I have to say, yeah, because like Katrina, I grew up looking at Europe, as this amazing thing to want to become. And I think for me, something that has always stood out is the craft. And I think there are a lot of ideas and of course, very strong insights across Europe as well. But I think that there are real artists in Europe. And that's not to say they don't exist in other regions, but there's less of this collective, artistic community. And I think because there are so many different cultures with so many different art movements within themselves, you get this really eclectic mix of things that filters into advertising. So for me, that's something like when I used to work in Australia and we used to get the campaigns from, the offices in Europe to adapt for the Australian market. We used to be amazed at the craft because we just never had access to the talent or the budget or any of these things that I think Europe is so lucky to have.
Okay.
Yeah, completely agree.
And Lauren, you come from Australia. Did you find many differences in the way of working when you first arrived here in France? Was there anything in particular that struck you about it?
There's a lot of things. I get asked this a lot actually, and the first one I always say is people actually stop for lunch, which I always worked with my lunch in front of my desk or in front of my screen, and that was very normal. But I've noticed the more I've been in France for 7 years now, and the more that I'm here, the more I think that there's a real intellectual conversation that happens in France that I have never experienced before. And it comes from this idea of rather than, taking the subject head on, which is maybe more an Anglo-Saxon approach, the French really like to discuss and debate things. So you'll find yourself in these almost philosophical debates around ideas and around problems that just, they go in circles, and it's all about the discussion. It's not about let's find a solution, let's move here. It's just talking about it. And it's taken me a really long time to really not get frustrated and be like, no, like, what are we doing? What's the solution? And it's just they love discussing. They love the intellectual side of advertising and the intellectual side of insights. So it's been very different, but I'm starting to appreciate what comes out of it.
And Katrina, you also worked outside of Europe in Thailand and Philippines, as you mentioned before. What are the differences with countries like UK and Italy that you have worked also?
So I think it's important to note that the jobs that I had in these two countries were quite different. So I was a young Asian woman working as an intern in a large Italian company in 2011. And now I'm a global creative director at Mullen, Lowe, London. So I think it's also important to note that the times were completely different. So in 2011, we didn't have Me Too, Brexit, and pandemic. And so these are the things that have changed the world since then. So in Italy, I would say my lifestyle was extremely balanced. I will always look at this time with fondness because Italian culture really feeds your soul. I think they really know how to live. Work-wise, it was very interesting for me to work in innovation because I guess you're at the very front end of ideation, whereas in advertising, you're sort of at the end, and you just need to land the product in the best way. In my current role in the UK, I feel as if there's a bit more room for maneuver. And likewise, because it's 2020, you get the feeling that the world is now much more open to change. It's much more open to diverse voices. And you feel as if, as a whole, we are much more intolerant of things like sexism or racism or a lack of environmental accountability. And of course, it's not saying that the UK isn't without problems, but the dissenting voices are very encouraging.
Okay. And Sandra, you are from Romania, as you mentioned before, and you're now working in Milano. Are any remarkable differences between those two?
Yeah, of course there. But it's funny because Romania and Italy come from the same Latin roots, from Rome, and it's lovely to see how similar we are and how in ways of approaching life and how people are, because they're more joyous or energetic, or I don't know, how we are more direct instead of going around the subject, we just confront it straight on. So it's lovely to see how Romania is just like Italy, but I don't know, many thousands of years of culture behind. That's it. No biggie. So then, yeah, all these couple of thousands of years of culture behind generate a lot of wiggle space, a lot of differences. So as you guys said about the craft, it's a difference in craft that's immense. Like when I started working in Italy, I started seeing exactly what it means to work with a very big director, with very big budgets, with attention to every single detail. The way we approach brand building, the exposure your campaigns have when you launch at a global scale, not only in your local market. There's also better food in Italy. Also.
I think we all agree on that.
I've always wanted to work in Italy for that exact reason.
And which campaigns have you been most excited by in the past 12 months and why? Or do you have any favorite among the Gerety 2020 winners?
I might go first here because I feel like everyone might have the same things and I don't want to lose the one that I'm in love with. I mean, it won the Grand Prix, so it's not a surprise, but the Moldy Whopper, I think, for every single creative out there was just so inspiring because I think at some point, every creative has had an idea of let's make the product look disgusting or let's show it doesn't work or, you know, let's show the downside of it. And I think they did it in such a beautiful way, and they made such a beautiful point. It was the right subject, it was the right time, it was the right craft, and I just can't believe they sold it in. So I think that deserves to be rewarded, and I'm really glad that it got the Grand Prix this year.
Yeah, I second that. And absolutely each piece of the campaign is so beautifully crafted. You are just, because you can make this idea and then it can look like you wanted to get rid of it and you wanted to just put it out there because it's a good idea, but the attention to craft they put in each piece, and the film with the music, with the day, and like everything, it's absolutely inspiring, and it makes you want to do good ads.
Completely. I think with the multi-whopper, people don't realize that it's technically very difficult to do. So yeah, I'm not going to repeat what everyone said so far, but it's just an amazing piece of work. In addition, I really love the Google's Project Understood one. So the fact that they created this voice-activated technology for people with Down syndrome. I think any tool that helps us understand each other should be always more welcome to the world.
Yeah.
I also like, sorry.
Yeah. No.
I also like one that really hits close to home in terms of what behavior they wanted to change. And it's the punishing signal. And it's a campaign about punishing drivers who honk at the red light, and the red light stays for longer if you, I don't know, pollute with heavy noises. So I really see this in Romania when people just honk and get angry, and it doesn't help anybody, does it? And I really like this campaign. It's one of my favorite. I think it's super smart and fun to watch.
Great. And talking about Gerety winners, Katrina, your campaign Granny Got Pants was rewarded with a silver in the communication cut.
Big pants have always stood for big comfort, but in a world where small meant sexy, our big pants became uncool and old-fashioned. As the grandmother of all underwear, Soggy changed this narrative by embracing its reputation.
I like big pants and I cannot lie.
We found somebody unapologetically comfortable
She is known as the Dancing Granny.
to star in a track that rewrote the rules of the knicker drawer. And the reaction was bigger than the pants.
Looks like Granny knows best. Oh, big pants, gotta get a test.
The world was finally choosing how they feel over how they've been expected to look. And they weren't afraid to show it.
G-string's still a thing. Them songs are wrong and knickers are twisting. Girls, stop resisting.
All thanks to one badass granny.
Can you tell us about how you came up with the idea for the campaign?
Sure. Actually, Granny Got Pants was a long time coming because we had the germ of an idea back when we were just a creative team working on the account. We did a bit of social listening, and we saw that Sloggy had gained a reputation as Granny Pants among the mums of Mumsnet. So I'm not sure if you know this forum in the UK. And given that Sloggy was all about comfort, we were really excited about this thought about embracing this reputation, toying with the idea of a granny to deliver our message. But it wasn't until a couple of years later that we were able to find the right opportunity for it. There was a brief to relaunch the maxi pants, which is the high waist, full coverage underwear that actually gave Sloggy this granny pants reputation. And that was actually based on a different brief. It felt promising at first, but after a couple of rounds, we weren't really coming up with anything interesting in the sweet spot of feasible and exciting. So we scrapped everything that we did. We shared this granny thought that we had with the team, and our team, Charlotte and Nina, crafted it to perfection. And we were really very fortunate that a lot of things fell into place. So first, we got the Baby Got Back track that we were dead set in rewriting. We had an amazing director and production team who shared our ambition. And we also had an amazing set of clients who were really excited, just as excited as we were.
Great. I love the campaign also. And Sandra, there was a very popular campaign from Publicis Italy, which is called Back to the Bars, that showed how interactions in bars had been shaped by the pandemic. How was the conception of the idea for this campaign?
Yeah, so in February, you might know a global pandemic started in the world. So basically the idea starts there because our client, Heineken, up until then, it was all about socializing, and that's where the brand lives, in social interactions. So we always had a lot of big pubs with a lot of people, big stadiums with a lot of people, big parties with a lot of people, concerts with a lot of people. And with this global pandemic, don't touch and stay 6 feet apart, we had to reboot the whole way Heineken communicates and Heineken sees life, and socialize responsibly started because the brands needed to be true to its core and to how it was, but also deliver a strong message that doesn't encourage people to act inappropriately. And during the lockdown, the first lockdown, we launched a few campaigns that were about the lockdown and about socializing responsibly in the lockdown. But one of the best places where the brand lives is in a bar. So that's why this brief was so exciting for us, because bars were opening again, we were getting out of the lockdown, and we had to come up with a new way of seeing this, encouraging people to socialize responsibly, but also seeing a fresh perspective into the fact that you need to act weirdly around your friends. And I'm really proud of how it got out, because we managed to find this point of view of how do you put in a good light the fact that everything will be awkward, and how do you deliver the message. And we managed through encouraging people to act carefully, just to keep on acting, seeing each other and acting carefully. So we said, there's one thing better than a night out, another night out, socialize responsibly to keep bars open. So yeah, this is the whole context of the campaign and how it started.
And Lauren, I read it is one of the campaigns you're most proud of, and I love it, and I'm a big fan as well, which is Chest Trap, a simple football move turned into a life-saving moment. Can you tell us about this campaign and how you came up with the idea?
Yeah, of course. It was a campaign a couple of years ago now for Olympique de Marseille, which is the second biggest football team in France. And we learned just through some research of our own that the breast exam rates were the lowest in the city of Marseille. So what we wanted to do, and it's a city that is very into their football, so we wanted to use the popularity and the joy they have around football and use it to get more women tested for breast cancer, which sounds like a weird mix, but it was based on a really simple insight, which is what I absolutely loved about it, because I don't know why I'm speaking like this. In French, contrôle de la poitrine has a double meaning. So it means a chest trap in football, which is when you bounce the ball off your chest, and it also means a breast exam. So one of my teammates found this play on words because he's natively French. And from there, we were just like, okay, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with this? And we thought obviously about films and about print and it's hard sometimes when you have like a cool thing, but you're not really sure how to form it. And then we were thinking about it more, and we were like, okay, football brings everyone together, and Olympique de Marseille do have a very active community online. So they might be based in France, but they've got over 2 million fans that are all over the world, and they all interact quite a lot. So we decided to engage them almost, and we used them to start what turned into quite a viral movement across France, where we asked people to film themselves doing a chest trap. Didn't have to be good. Like when you see the videos, what I loved about them is a lot of people were creative, or they used balloons, or they were terrible and had clearly never done one. But the idea was that they would do a chest trap on film and submit it with the hashtag contrôle de la poitrine to encourage more women to do it in hospitals. And what I was so proud about was that it really did get results. I mean, it was, let's say, a local campaign. It was all over France, and it did spread to some parts of Europe, but the results happened in Marseille, and we did increase the breast cancer exam rate in hospitals, and we could measure it. It wasn't, you know, like women checking at home. So it actually felt good to know more women are going into hospitals, more women are getting tested, and the football club was really proud of it as well, which was great because, you know, football is a very macho community. It's not normally about women's health, and yeah, it ended up being a really successful thing for everyone involved.
Great. And you have been named one of 10 next creative leaders by One Club and 3% Conference, so congratulations. What makes you think, yes, I totally deserve it?
I mean, I would love to think that. And that is, you know, I'm working towards thinking that. But you know what? I don't know if you know much about the way. I actually found the application very useful because you submit projects for a panel to judge, but you have to submit a point of view about what you did and what was your role on the project. And it really helps you analyze how you being on that project made a difference. Like you get to look at and go, okay, I spoke up here, I didn't speak up here, I should have pushed here, I should have insisted on that. But you have to really think about, had someone else been in that room in your place, you know, would the campaign or would the project have gone the way it did? Which really did make me prouder of the work that I'd achieved, because had I not been in the room, had I not voiced some of those things, then we would have been heading in a different direction. So the process itself did make me feel a little bit more, I wouldn't say worthy, but heading in that direction, which was great.
Okay, great. And a question for the three of you. After a pandemic 2020 that was very much reflected into advertising and campaigns, of course, what do you expect to find in campaigns for 2021? What kind of stories or ideas would you like to see?
I think we would always look at 2020 as a year of the great reckoning. You know, it was the year we had the pandemic, the death of George Floyd, American elections, and it's also the year where we needed to take critical action to reverse climate change. I think what's happened with the world in lockdown is we've all had time to reflect about what we'd like to happen from here, both from an individual and industry perspective. And I think it's safe to say that we don't really want to go back to the way things were. You know, we're much more willing to let go of the things that don't add value to our lives. So I think a lot of the campaigns in 2021 will reflect a restart and an acknowledgement of the role that advertising plays in the lives of people. So I think we can expect to see that brands will become more accountable when it comes to things like inequality or health or environment. And it also does feel as if a brand purpose is no longer a nice thing to have. It feels as if it's necessary to be relevant today.
I completely agree. And something I found really interesting off the back of this year is that we've really learnt as a society that things can change overnight if we want them to. Yeah. And there's not as much red tape, and behavior change can be instant. So I think that is such an interesting thing for us all to learn and to then use in our campaigns and our storytelling, because it's also been a time, as you said, of reflection where we've got to discover stories or causes or movements that we never would have seen or had time to see before. And I think that, advertising does such a great job of directing attention that we should really be focusing on, let's direct the attention to these stories and give them a little bit more airtime. And there are so many solutions out there, and we just need to find where they are in the world and then tell their story on a more global level. So I think that's something that would be really exciting as well.
Yeah, completely agree.
I totally agree with you too. I think that's the big change in 2020 and how we should look forward. If there's one thing to add, because you kind of covered it all, is that I like when brands act fully and they don't just communicate something on top just to have to drop something in a conversation and then they don't back it up with real action or I don't know, infrastructure or sustainable actions. Plus, I think what I like in in the way we make the ads, I like them to be insightful and to tell a compelling story rather than just, I don't know, putting something out there because you need to. Again, it kind of mirrors into just doing something for the sake of doing it, just to be on trend. So for me, this is it, to have more depth into our ads than just to be a front window with nothing behind.
Okay.
That is a great metaphor.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. I'm definitely going to use that. That is an excellent metaphor.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this moment and these insights and these opinions with us at this Gerety talk. And well, let's hope for the best for this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
lovely meeting you all.
Yeah, so nice to meet you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.